You are now entering the after party zone. Your docents are the Great Order and no white guilt. The honors roll call highlights and celebrates those who have conscientiously committed to monthly gifts in my work for white well-being. And appearing on the All-Stars portion on the honors roll call today are the Good Girl and Mobile Scotty. And those remaining on the honors roll call are Cassius, Gregory, Wayne, Evillian, Van Diggle, me, Cox 52, Hendrickson, Darcy, and Euphemia. I humbly appreciate your support and sense of moral responsibility to white well-being. As for the Super Chat crown winner of last week, the crown goes to Expose the Nose for investing a total of 50 go to the white light dollars. In second place there was no second place. So all of the thanks and gratitude goes to Expose the Nose. Financially gift on Entropy, because you can't on YouTube, at 15%. But you can also watch the stream over there, and you can ask questions in the question widget and vote on questions. You can participate in any polls if I get around to setting any up. You can also, I should say, gift on Ko-fi at 15% and Cash App at 6%. Jared and I evenly share the financial gifts with our guests here on the After Party. Today, we're getting tapped into the much beloved Dion from the YouTube channel Secret Sources. We're going to have Dion tell us a bit about herself and where you can find her here at the beginning of the conversation, and then she will give us that information again at the end of the conversation, because we know so many of you are watching these things, or I should say just listening rather than watching. So you're listening for those links rather than looking for them. So now, Dion, if you will, introduce yourself for us, tell us where people can find you, and then Mr. George will take us into the conversation.
Well, hello everybody, and hello Jason and Jared. It's so wonderful to be invited onto this show. I've watched so many episodes of this after party, and well, my name is Dionne Muller. I'm a British woman, a housewife. I have a YouTube channel called Secret Sources. You can also find me on BitChute. And I'm also on Twitter.
Fantastic. And I was just telling Dion, ladies and gentlemen, before we got started on the show, that so many folks have written to me to say, express their gratitude that she's on, how much they love this dear lady. We love her too. And Jared, George, and I could not be more excited to have her here today. Mr. George.
Well, you know what we like to do on tap. We like to really get to know someone, especially when it's their first time. So Dion, welcome. It's the first time that we are speaking. So pleasure. And thank you for giving us your time. And we want to start with some history. One of the things that I found fascinating about you is that you spent about 10 years as a police officer in Britain. And we are quite fascinated to hear what your experiences were. So if you could take as much time as you need in the beginning to paint a picture of what that was like, and then some of the things that you saw towards the end that made you want to leave. It was roughly during the decade of the 1990s, is that correct?
Yes, there is a bit of a backstory to the reason that I became a police officer. I was trafficked when I was 18 years old to Germany. And I escaped from Germany together with two other girls. And that's a story in itself, and you can find the whole story, which I tell on my BitChute channel. But when I got back to the UK, we had 2 days of being on the run, myself and these two other girls. We came back to the UK, and nothing really happened. We were interviewed in a pub by the police, and nothing came of it. So after I'd kind of, I won't say I got over it, because I don't think I've ever got over it, But after I kind of calmed down a little bit, I decided that the only way that I was going to get any kind of closure was to find this man myself. And I knew enough about this guy. He was living in the United Kingdom. He was actually living in a town quite close to where I lived. So I joined the police force to find the man. That's why I joined. I would like to say that I joined the police force because I wanted to make a difference, but that would really be a lie. So yes, I joined Leicestershire Police Force, the constabulary, as just a normal constable, and I spent years trying to find this guy whilst working as a police officer. So if you like, I kind of was a little bit not undercover, but I suppose you could say I was. But if you take away that part, I enjoyed being a police officer. It was very exciting. It was very interesting. I became what was called at that time a rape trained officer, which means that I was trained to deal with incidents of rape and sexual assault on men, women, and children, which was it could be quite harrowing at times. I've also been awarded a bravery award or medal, whatever you want to call it, from the Prime Minister at the time, Tony Blair. So I went to Downing Street to meet that man. I wish that had never happened because he's not a nice person. But yeah, I've kind of tried a little bit of everything. I've seen a great deal of life, a lot of it very negative. I think I've seen the very negative side of human beings. But after 10 years of being in the police force, I got disillusioned with the job. I never found the guy who trafficked me. I'm sure that he's not alive now because he was quite old at the time, so I'm sure that he's died. But yeah, I got disillusioned because it's just a big machine. You know, you can spend time catching criminals, arresting them, processing them, sending files to the Crown Prosecution Service to get these people jailed. But it doesn't happen, you know. 2 weeks later, you'll see the same guy in the street committing the same crime. And that was just time after time after time. And you get disillusioned because you think this is just not working. It's a waste of time. And so I left. I packed my bags. I used to live on a barge as a single woman in the police force because I needed an escape. And so at the time we worked 6 days on and had 4 days off. And so the 4 days off, I would kind of untether my boat and sail away to escape. So I sold everything and I moved to Denmark.
Dion, what is the name of the BitChute video where you go into that whole history?
It's called Tommy Robinson, Grooming Gangs and Links to the Past, I believe.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, we'll make sure that we link to that and our moderators put it there. You said something about Tony Blair. Did you have an interaction with him? Any quick story there when you went to meet him at Downing Street?
Yes, I was with all police officers who had been nominated for bravery awards, and we all received a bravery award, but it was kind of like a competition. Who was the bravest officer in the UK that year? And we all met in the back of Downing Street, number 10 Downing Street. There's a large garden at the back of Downing Street, and Tony Blair was there, and all the cameras were there, but he didn't speak to anybody, any of the officers. He definitely didn't speak to me. And we went up one by one to have our photographs taken with Mr. Blair. And as soon as I walked up to him, you know, I used to be kind of like a bit of a cheeky a cheeky little thing. And I just walked up and said, "Hi, how are you? You know, this is the Prime Minister." And I'm just like, "Oh, how are you?" And he just looked at me. I'm not very tall, and he's really tall. And he just looked down his nose at me, didn't say anything. But as soon as he turned his face to the camera, there was this big, the Tony Blair famous cheesy grin, you know, the one that he has. And the photograph was taken, and he just walked off. And I thought, well, that was nice. That was good. Yeah, you know, he has an air of arrogance about him, which I didn't like.
Two-faced politician, literally.
Yeah.
Knows how to turn it on for the camera right away.
Yes.
But
Yes.
is he really a servant of his people? Is he really a leader of his people?
No, he wasn't. No, he led the UK to war under a lie.
Yes, exactly. I'm curious to hear more about what disillusioned you and how this all unraveled your time as a police officer. What was the political correctness climate like back in the 90s?
There wasn't really any. Nowadays, new recruits, they receive something called common purpose training. And this is something invented by one of our, what can I say, Middle Eastern friends in a particular country in the Middle East. But we didn't have it back then. We treated people as we expected to be treated ourselves. We were polite to people, but of course, if they were causing trouble or whatever, then they got the treatment that they deserved, and that's how it was. I did get told off once because I kind of was a bit cheeky to an Asian man, but there wasn't any of this political correctness. Being a police officer in the 90s, it was still a man's job. You were still treading into a man's world, and I understood that. And there was a great deal of banter, you might call it, and that's just part of the job. And some of it was very, rough and ready, but you get used to it. And at the end of the day, the people that you were working with, the people on your shift, are the people that will probably save your life. So at some point you have to, you have to understand this. Oh, I don't even know what to call it. It's very difficult to explain. It is like a club, and if you're not in it, you're not in. But when you are in it, it does become your family. You know, at one point, these people on my shift, they meant just as much to me as my own family did, because these were the people I spent the majority of my time with, even my free time sometimes. And I knew them better than the back of my hand. And yes, we would joke, and we would joke about all sorts of things, but as far as the public were concerned, we dealt with them as we should. There was nothing like we see today with political correctness towards women, towards people of color, towards transsexual people, gay people, whatever. There was none of that, none of it at all. And it's incredible how things have changed within the last at least 10-15 years. It's turned really in this profession, which I was once very proud of. It's just turned into something in the gutter. It's worth nothing.
Well, were you seeing any throughout the time in the 90s of the move towards hiring initiatives and outreach to, we'll say, non-native British people to become police officers? Or were you surrounded by your fellow Brits?
No. The place I worked was the city of Leicester, which is, and was at that time, majority Asian.
And for our
It is now.
American viewers, we remind them that in Britain they use Asian a little differently than we do here.
Yes.
In the States, it's typically, when you say Asian, you mean East Asian, Korea, China, Japan, etc. In Britain, it's usually more to refer towards the Middle East, Afghanistan, places like that.
Yes, you're quite correct. Sorry, I forgot that. It was
No, that's what I'm
mostly
here for.
Bangladesh, Pakistan, that area, and a lot of people from the Caribbean and Africa, all mixed in to one city, and that's the area that I worked in. There was, at the time, the people that I worked with, there was one non-white person that I worked with, but he wasn't a full police officer. He was what was called a special. And these specials are people that give up their free time to be a police officer. Sometimes these people can't get through the whole tests and exams to be a police officer, so they become specials instead, and they work side by side, real police officers, and help with this, that, and the other, and that's fine. And the guy that this guy I worked with, I'm sure that he was a Hindu. Actually, I'm not sure. No, he wasn't a Hindu. He was from Pakistan. It doesn't matter. He was a nice guy, and he joined in the banter. You know, a lot of the banter was about him because he wasn't white, and it was accepted. There was nothing nefarious about what we were saying. There was nothing evil about it. It wasn't meant in a derogatory way at all. It was just the way things were, and he accepted that, and so did many other people of color at the time. But this Marxist, leftist, I don't know what to call it,
Anti-white,
evil, evil spell that has been cast on people. It's awful. I have problems understanding why people, normal people, if you like, can't see it. I don't understand it. I won't accept it. I will be myself. I won't change. I'm not going to treat people differently because they're gay or straight or whatever. I'm not. I won't.
Well, see, this is the thing, that we rib each other all the time. And so it is really something that makes life very difficult, anti-whiteism, if for no other reason. If it was just white people and they suddenly said, well, people with whatever color eyes, you can't ever rib them again because no matter what it is, when you're in an environment, certainly like a police force, like you were in, Dion, military, but it's certainly, or rather just really when it comes to anything, any kind of job or how can I say, association, because the more I try to define this, I see the wider circles of where it reaches. But we rib each other, certainly in very polite scenarios, we're not going to rib each other. But this satirizing is something that is normal. It's healthy. There was a guy who I knew that was, if he was not making fun of you, that meant he did not like you. And it was only if he was telling falsehoods about you that were ridiculous and mocking you, that's when he really liked you and you knew you were on his good side. If he wasn't doing that, then this guy didn't like you. So the kind of stories I'll have to tell one of these days, the kind of things he made up about me. But yeah, it cripples communication. It cripples the job. And that's really what is at hand here when we're talking about law enforcement, is being able to enforce the law and effectively, efficiently, and to save people so they don't get trafficked, so they don't have these horrible things happen to them. So that was obviously something that was undermining you, and it was clearly a thorn to the communication. You were able to have these conversations with this guy and rib him, satirize something that was alien to you all, and he was numerically diffident ladies and gentlemen. So he had to, either he was going to be the kind of guy that was going to say, yeah, that's funny because we're friends, or he was going to be the kind of guy who was going to fight back if he had enough of his folks with him. And now we see that they have enough of their people around, that they are the numerical courage. But that's a really interesting thing. Thank you for touching upon this, that you could joke with this guy back then, but you can't joke anymore. He can tell all the jokes he wants about you, though, and all of the other non-white, anti-whites out there. And it cannot be just, when it comes to ribbing, it's a way to, in a way, draw closer to that person. You're saying that we know each other well enough, we're friends enough that I can tell a little joke about X, Y, or Z. There's a kernel of truth, but the rest of it is fun. And but the ribbing is not what's happening when it comes to the kind of things that are said about white people today by anti-white non-whites and by anti-white whites as well. So it's a really important element of this social cohesion or lack thereof that we just touched upon. It's easy to just race over that thing and miss it for all of the value it actually has. So let me pass it back over to Jared. But if you have any other things you'd like to say about that or to that, Dion, please go ahead.
Well, yes, I would like to just say something. I would not now, if I went back in time under these new rules, I would never in a million years be working with anybody that couldn't take a joke. Mm-hmm. Not in the environment that you have to work in as a police officer. I need to know that person I'm working with inside out before I'm going to be running around the streets in the middle of the night chasing people with guns and knives and God knows what else. Mm-hmm. I will not put my own life in the hands of somebody who might take a joke the wrong way and report me to my superiors because I called this person something, whatever.
That's right.
Not in a million years. And so maybe that's one of the reasons why the police force in the UK is breaking down, because there's no trust between the officers. I don't know.
Yeah, to what Jason spoke to, there's a lot of hijacking of social signals and this micromanagement of how people interact, these natural things that occur. Human communication interaction is messy. You can't just try to regulate everything and make everything a bureaucracy. It's not really my style to give people too much of a hard time, but I understand that there are social, and I'm sure you could argue even biological aspects to this. The fact that the guy who worked with you was able to banter around, that's all well and good. It also, you could say, in a strange way, it's a more polite way of him being reminded of something, which is true. And it is important that it's an instinct that your fellow officers would have, all of the native British white officers, and that would be to remind him that he is different. And that might sound so horrible to ears in 2020, but is it really? Is it really that in your country, he's being reminded in this playful way, but still there's a boundary being asserted there that, look, you're in our country, you're in our civilization, and you have to kind of, we set the standard. You're the outlier here. You have to kind of adapt to our culture, our ways. Those are signals right there. Those officers in there joking around might not think about it that deeply, but that's kind of what's going on under the hood. And there's a time and a place for that, because I'm all about proper boundaries, understanding boundaries. But it sounds like we're getting into one other aspect I wanted to talk to you about with your police officer days, and that is something I've heard you talk about, and that's the bureaucracy. You were saying it's this machine. Was it worse? Did you see a progression in the 10 years that you were there, even during that time? And it's not nearly as bad as it is now, but did you see the seeds of where we are now starting to be planted? I know you've spoken about the bureaucracy, and you've even called it that you were comparing it to the Stasi, how things were going and how micromanaged and controlling everything was. So we'd love to hear a little about that, if you have anything to add.
Yes, when I first joined in 1990, in the very first few weeks of my service, I went down to the cells at my police station. And it was a very, very old police station in a very large Victorian house, which had been converted.
Oh, wow.
And the cellar to this enormous Victorian house had been made into the cells, and it had been like that for very, very many years.
How about that?
And I went down to the cells to get some experience of working down in the custody suite. That was what it was called. And when I walked in, I remember looking up to the ceiling and seeing these thick black things hanging down from the ceiling. And I said to the custody sergeant, "What is that?" And he said, "They're dreadlocks." And I said, "Why are they hanging from the ceiling?" And he said, "It's a trophy." That would never, ever happen today, because somebody who had dreadlocks had been in these cells and been in a fight, because people don't just take dreadlocks out of people's heads if they don't fight. And these things were put up into the ceiling as a trophy and maybe a reminder to people that this is business down here. We don't mess around down here. That would never, ever happen today. Ever. Not ever. All these things changed or started to change when I was moved from this police station to another, which was more central to the centre of town, because it was more busier. You see, the more experience I received, or the more experience I had, the more things I could deal with, the more things I was sent out to. So I was moved towards the centre of the town, where it was busier. And a new police station was built. It was a place called Hamilton. And it was just this enormous concrete block, impersonal, horrible, cold place. And I look back on my service to the days that I spent at this Victorian house with great love, really. And then I think about the time that I spent in Hamilton, where I could see a massive change. Everything was so clinical, and everything was, I'm going to say by the book, because, and that's going to sound odd, isn't it? Because everything should be by the book, no matter when, but it wasn't always by the book. You can't do everything by the book all the time. But at Hamilton, everything was by the book. Everything was starting to change. There was, I don't know whether I should tell this story or not, but I'm going to anyway. There was a lady, there was a young lady who was an Africa, a descendant of Africa, let's put it that way. She was very, very, very dark-skinned, and she was employed, I'm going to say it, as a token, to stand in the reception of this police station, because it looked good for the police.
Mm-hmm.
She was the worst person to do that. She couldn't do the job. Mm-hmm. She was forever making mistakes. She was never getting anything right, not ever. But she kept her job. Mm-hmm. And it just goes to show how the lengths people will go to make this, I don't know, this fantasy become real, you know. I gave her a lift home once in my police car, but I was starting my shift and she was finishing her shift. And I was on the way out and I said to her, "Do you want me to drive you home?" And she, yes, oh, that would be nice. So she drove with me, and she told me that I had to stop the police car a few streets away from where she lived, because if the people that lived in her street saw that she got out of a police car, her life would be over. Yeah. And I thought to myself, then what on earth are you doing working in a police station if you don't, you know, you don't have it in your heart? This is wrong. It's all wrong, you know. But she kept her job, and she kept her job because of the colour of her skin and nothing else, because she was rubbish at her job. She couldn't do it. Awful.
Speaking of antecedents, I've also heard you speak about how the grooming gangs that we know of today that news was not as out in the open, but you saw one of again, antecedents to this, there was a phenomenon of children who would go missing from children's homes, from orphanages or houses for kids that aren't with their families. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. There was a large children's home on my patch. I think it housed maybe about 30 or 40 children. And we were constantly being told to go and take a missing report, a report of a missing child from one of these children's homes. And when you are a probationer in the police force, when you're under tuition, your mentor shows you what to do. And you go into these this children's home, and you take the report, and really it's just who's gone missing, when was he or she last seen, who's in charge of this child, and that's it. And then you go to the next job and the next job and the next job all day until you get back to the police station at the end of your shift, and then you start to file paperwork with the different officers, and that's it. The thing is that the children in the children's home weren't treated with the same rules as a child that maybe had gone missing from, let's say, a middle class home, or a child who lived with their parents. It was a different thing, because I've been to many of them. A child has gone missing from his mother and father's home, and there would be an all-out helicopters and God only knows what else to find this missing child. But a child of the state, that's what I call them, a child who doesn't have parents to look after them, who is in care, is not treated with the same under the same rules at all. And can I just apologize for my English, because I speak Danish all day, every day for 20 years. And when I speak English, I find it really difficult sometimes to find the right words. I used to be able to speak fantastic English, but I can't anymore. I can't think of the words. And it would be awful if I started speaking Danish, because no one would be able to understand what I'm saying.
No,
so I'm sorry about that.
You're doing, it's brilliant. And, and I'm enjoying this very much, learning a lot. I have one more kind of antecedent question to what's going on now, and then we'll talk a little more about your personal journey as well. But just curious, because it's come up, were you aware, whether through your job or just being a UK citizen and living your life in general, of the Blair administration in the 1990s actively advertising and seeking people in Africa and Asia to come live in the UK, and trying to make it as easy as possible to bring in these populations? Were you aware that that was going on then? As we now know, we have a little more information, and we can look back now and see that that happened. Were you aware of it at the time?
No, I wasn't. I have to be very honest and say that at that time, I was very politically naive. And I suppose to a certain extent, I still am. I'm learning. But, at the time, I can't explain to you how busy a police officer is on a normal everyday. Right. It's really from incident to incident, and you just do not have time to stop and think about anything. And then when you have your 3 days off, of course, I was out on my boat and I was just sailing away from it all. I wasn't bothered about anything. I just wanted to get away from all the death and violence and all of that. And no, I have to be honest and say I wasn't aware of it, because I wasn't politically engaged at all.
Right. Yeah. I just wanted to ask, and it does seem like culturally there was this whole thing in the 90s where you were seeing like music, popular music, and artists would kind of mix in sounds of Africa and bring in the music videos would have more people from different backgrounds. There was this moment in the 90s where it was first presented in its most utopian vision, in its most idealized version. And that was kind of sold to people, this like international fun club of cosmopolitan people.
Yeah.
I can remember that a little bit as being a kid. All the kinds of things were marketed, even here in the United States. What we call soccer, what you call football, was getting bigger after the World Cup was here in 1994, and there were the FIFA games from EA Sports, the video games, and there was just that and the music. There was just this conglomeration of, like I said, that feel good cosmopolitanism, and I could kind of see where people hooked onto that saccharine, clean version that you see in commercials and music. I know in the UK, electronic music and rave culture really exploded in the 1990s, and there was this feeling of like we can all dance together, we can all sample music from each other's cultures, because then it was digital music and sampling was bigger, and you could mix in African drums and put them under this other tune that you knew of from Britain or wherever. It was this heady mix. It was this heady stew of propaganda where it all seemed like it was just going to be this party, and we were going to solve all of our differences. So I'm sure a lot of people like you weren't aware that underneath the surface, the Blair administration and many other organs of power were doing things like this to bring people in and ultimately undermine our native populations. But what we were getting in the culture, we could certainly see it looking back now. But I remember even being a kid, and like I can remember it, and now as an adult, piece it together and rationalize it. It was everywhere in the culture. There was this thing in the 90s about, hey, we're all going to be dancing in this rave, in this international
street
together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I could tell you something, but I can't, because I'm going to the Patriotic Alternative Conference soon, and I've written this speech because I'm speaking, and I can't tell you because it's in the speech, so I can't.
Well, that's a little
but I do know what
teaser.
you're talking
Yes,
about.
it is a teaser.
Yeah, that's a teaser. Yeah, but as far as what you said there, Jared, I was born in a multicultural town, and well, my father moved the family out to a very small village in the countryside when I was 7, but which, by the way, was 100% white at the time. And my mother and father, of course, we would travel back and forwards into the town of Leicester. So I was used to it. It's something that I've grown up with, seeing people with different skin colors, and going to Diwali events as a police officer and policing these people. And I didn't see it. But I can't really say any more on that, because otherwise I'll ruin my speech.
Well, we look forward to it.
Yes.
Please say hello to all of our friends over there. Jason and I pride ourselves on really trying to be connected to the whole scene internationally, and especially our cousins over in the UK. Why don't we get a little more into your story after your time as a police officer? What is your arc? How did you come to a more white positive stance and worldview, and come to see the context of the kinds of things you were saying, like those little Diwali festivals? They're not just this little fun alternative thing over here that 1% of the population does. And it's not really a big deal because it's kind of siphoned off, and it's just this little nice extra thing, this extra spice. There's a lot more to it than that, and that our people are in fact under psychological and physical attack and are being undermined.
Now you're going to laugh at me and think I'm thick, but I'm not. What happened was, after 9/11 happened, when 9/11 happened, I had my daughter, who was 18 months old at the time, and I was pregnant with my son, very heavily pregnant with my son. So when that happened, I didn't really think that much about it. I think it was because of I was busy with my two very young children. So a few years after 9/11 happened, I happened to be looking at something on my computer, and I stumbled across David Icke. Please don't laugh at me, because I'll explain. And
We're pretty open-minded here. It's quite all right.
Yeah.
okay. But that's really where it all happened, because somebody was talking about David Icke's book called I've got it here, I can't remember what it's called. The Biggest Secret, it's called. And I thought, well, that looks quite exciting, because I read quite a lot of books. So I bought his book, The Biggest Secret, and I read it, and I reread it, and then I read it again, and then from this The Biggest Secret, I started to read books by Jim Marrs. He's a guy from Texas who died, I think, a couple of years ago. And I think I've got all of Jim Marrs's books. And from there, all of this, coupled with the fact that for very, very many years, my father was somebody who was in the Royal Air Force, and he was very interested in both World War I and World War II, and we won't go into that, but I used to be very interested in looking and researching the Second World War. So I already had kind of a bit of an idea that things weren't quite as they seemed. And I, coupled with what I read in David Icke's book and Jim Marrs's books, then I started to go a little bit further, and I looked at, and at this point, the internet was nearly as it is now. And so I started looking at things like the Kalergi Plan and the protocols of the Elders of Zion, and so on and so forth. But all of this happened very, very slowly. And I think, if I'm completely honest, and I will be, I think a lot of my problem with getting where I am now is due to my own cognitive dissonance. I didn't want to believe what I was reading. The whole thing changed for me when I had a YouTube channel, and I was very nearly up to 30,000 subscribers on this channel. And I watched a documentary called Europe, The Last Battle. And after I'd watched this documentary, I felt mentally disturbed, and that's quite honest description of how I felt, for about a week. And I just thought, this can't be right. I need to do something about this. I need to find out what this is all about, because I can't have this on my shoulders anymore. It was too hard. So what I did was I asked my subscribers on my YouTube channel if anybody would be interested in researching or fact checking that documentary. I wanted 20 people, because there's 10 episodes to this documentary. So I wanted two people per episode. So I needed 20 people, and I wanted them from all the way around the world, and I wanted them all of different ages and of both sexes, because there are only two sexes. So I got lots of applications from people, all ages, from 17 years old up to about 84, I think the oldest person was, both men and women, from the UK, Ireland, Scotland, America, Spain, everywhere. And I chose 20 people to help me, and we started fact checking this documentary, Europa, The Last Battle. We teamed up 2 and 2, and we went through the facts in each episode. And this research, it could have gone on for years, but all I wanted to do was just to fact check it. Was this fact true or not, or could we not come to a conclusion about the evidence in the video? And the results were that 76% of the facts in Europa, the last battle, are true. That's not to say that the 24 remaining percent are false. That is to say that the 24 remaining percent are facts that I couldn't establish. How do you say it? Facts where I thought the information was maybe conflicting or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I couldn't say yes or no, then that got a minus. So that's why the 24% are there. And when I received all of the information back from these 20 people, I had to accept what I was saying, because I'd been involved in it myself. And then this, I don't know whether you want me to go into the thing with Tommy Robinson and what happened there, but that's where this pill I'd got lodged in my throat, which had been there for years, really. That's when I swallowed the pill that day outside the Old Bailey, or the day after. I went to the Old Bailey to speak at Tommy Robinson's demonstration there. And I stood on a large stage, and behind me, I couldn't sit at the time because, of course, I was facing the other way. I was speaking, and at the back of me was a massive screen, and on the screen appeared this word, shalom. And when I got home to Denmark, and I watched my speech that somebody had recorded on their telephone and uploaded to YouTube, that me standing in front of this word, shalom, I'm telling you that my mouth physically fell open. And I can tell you, at breakneck speed, my brain, I could literally physically feel my brain clicking. Something was happening, and it was over in about 40 seconds, and that pill was gone. And it was very cathartic, actually. And I'm actually shaking, actually talking about it, because it was such an event, a personal event for me, that I'd bared all of this for so long. And it just took that little thing to make me realize, my God, I have been hoodwinked all of my life. And I need to open my eyes, and I need to search for people who know about these things, because I'm not educated in these things. I know a little bit about maybe a lot of things, but I'm not expert on anything. And that's why I reached out to Mark Collett, because that's where the road led me to his door. And I reached out to Mark, and he was so friendly and welcoming, and we've spoken very, very many times. And that's why I'm sitting here today as an ethno-nationalist, realizing that I have been lied to for all of my life. And that's a big thing to swallow, but I'm afraid it's true.
Well, it's fascinating to hear from, and we thank you for sharing all this. What happened with that first YouTube channel? Because we know that you had one, and then it is no longer here.
No, I had a YouTube channel which started as an art channel, which morphed into a channel about a very serious spinal operation I had. And then Tommy Robinson got arrested in Leeds, and I made a very short video, about 2 minutes long, because what happened to him was wrong. Whether I like him or not, what happened to him was wrong. He should never have been put into prison for that. And that 2-minute video went viral. Immediately, it was everywhere, and suddenly my channel shot up from about 50 subscribers to about 3,000 overnight. It was just like that. And I thought, wow, okay, I'll continue here. You know, I'll do. That's how my channel morphed into what it was. And then it reached about 30,000 people. But after my cathartic experience, I knew my channel was full of people that were telling me lies. It was a monster. And I deleted it. I deleted the thing myself. It was also kind of a two-pronged thing, because I knew that these 30,000 people would raise a question mark if I had disappeared, and I wanted them to raise a question mark. I wanted them to say, "Where's Dion? What, you know, where is she?" I wanted them to look into what I was saying, and I thought that, okay, by deleting this channel, they're going to look into it, and some of them might even get on this journey themselves, because I want them to know the truth. And it worked. It didn't work as massively as I wanted it to, but at the last PA conference, some people did say that because of what I'd done and what I'd said, that they also had swallowed this massive pill that they had lodged in their throats, and that they were very happy, and they thanked me. And I thought, well, the whole thing's worth it then. That was all worth it.
So when you say that there was a lot of falsehoods, people commenting on your first channel, was it people who wanted to stay blue-pilled, stay in the current mainstream, or was it also trolls, do you think? People trying to just spread disinformation and break apart the socializing that you get when people come together around a channel, form a community?
Well, there were definitely trolls on my channel. People that no matter what I did, no matter what I said, no matter how much money I donated to disabled children, it was all wrong. I couldn't do anything right. So definitely I had people who had infiltrated my channel and were stopping other people from listening to me. That is definitely true.
Yeah, those are just bad actors and have to be ignored.
Yeah, but a lot of the people, a lot of the 30,000 people that I had on my channel were staunch Tommy Robinson supporters, and they didn't want to face the truth. They don't want to look at it, and a lot of them still don't. So that's a problem that we still have with these people.
I want to say, if I could, this is really we could talk for you for another 5 hours. I mean, it's such an amazing story that you have, and it's even more amazing and poignant than I had realized. When we got started right away, you got my attention from the very beginning of the show here today. And I think one of the things I just want to point out for everybody who's watching live and who will be watching in replay is that Dion came to White Wellbeing over a painstaking, meticulous, slow, methodical process. This wasn't somebody who rushes blindly into, oh, there's this trend over here. Oh, there's that trend over there. You're not rushing any direction. You're not capricious. You're not mercurial. You're not whimsical. You're not volatile when you are reaching out to folks and saying, hey, could I find some more researchers to help me do research on this one particular thing here? And we're all going to research, and we'll see how much a percentage of we can verify and how much we can prove is not correct and how much we just don't know about. That is somebody who's really meticulous, and perhaps this is in your nature. Perhaps it's something that comes from or your police training, but it certainly speaks to profoundly that when you come to a truth, that you have arrived at a truth. It's not like these late night TV channels, or where you see these commercials in the middle of the night and they want to get you while you're half awake, half asleep, and it's some bizarre thing they're trying to sell you. Do it now, buy now, and all things will be better in your life. And then people just do that. That's not what's happening here. So it really does speak to it's really a testimony to White Wellbeing, to going free, to service to our people, that someone of your nature went through this process very slowly, very methodically, and has arrived here as this is the truth. This is the inescapable reality. Had to swallow that hard pill. The last final facts fell in place for me. The reality came together, and now I'm here. So this is again, as I can't say enough, and so many are this way, that who are here are the types who do study, and when they go out into the world, they don't immediately take what we're saying for granted and make a split-second decision. They go out into the world, they do their own research, they cogitate, they think about things themselves. So they're weighing things. And when you arrive at a truth after weighing something, it is much more meaningful. And especially when you see so many great people who are here in our community, the white positive sphere, who are weighing these things and then coming to this truth, it's very meaningful. Elsewhere, you see people making split-second decisions based on cartoon drawings. Here, it's a little bit more cerebral. We do have a question for you, Dion, and this is from Tall Kevin over on the question widget on Entropy. Thank you very much, dear friend. And he writes here, of all the previous kings, queens, monarchs in England's history, who do you feel was the most instrumental or beneficial to our people?
What a question.
Mm.
All of the kings and queens. That I have never ever thought of before in my life. And I'm not really one to give off the cuff answers. I like to think about things. So maybe
when we have you back.
Yes, and I'll give you the answer then. But I might just think about that during the end of the show, and I'll just say, "Oh, I know."
That's how it always
because
happens.
I'm so sorry, because I'm just the kind of person that likes to think over things. I don't like to just say, "Oh, it was because."
Right.
No, I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
No, there's no apology needed. We have a question here from Pure Nomad about if you know or have heard of the story of the ex-police officer Harry Miller's story. Have you heard of this? No, that's an easier yes or no question rather than the kings and queens and monarchs. We also have a financial gift here of $3, and this is I'll have to think about how to pronounce this in a moment, but this is for Jared. I guess it's a statement. Jared, with that beard, you are starting to look like a U-boat captain. Check out the rendition of Das Boot. I don't know what that is, but thank you for your financial gift.
A classic sea captain. That's a good look.
Yes,
I'll take it as a compliment.
Precisely.
It has to get big and gray one day, though. Then I'll really be the sea captain, fisherman, lighthouse guy.
Yeah, precisely. Folks, remember, we're running out of time here. So if you have any questions or comments, questions for Dionne, you know she's widely beloved, and she's done a great deal to really help a lot of people come away from the fleecing that was taking place with them, and that she's got more work to do there. But she's a bit drowned in that, headed up to her eyeballs with old Tommy. But any other questions about for her life, and make them now. Tag me, tag Jared. You can financially gift on Entropy or on Cash App. That is 6%. Ko-fi and Entropy are both at 15%. And I will keep an eye out for those comments. And if you want to tag me over on the gardening channel, make sure that you tag me as Gardening with NWG, because if you tag me as No White Guilt over there, it won't light up for me and I won't see it. We have a full house here today. It's been a fabulous show. And what can you tell us about any little tidbit to wet people's whistle, to get them excited about what's going to be the work you're doing next, and the videos or what have you that will be available?
Oh God, Jason, I wish you'd have asked me that before we started, because then I could have come with some really good golden nuggets for
some
people,
nuggets.
because
Well, I'll tell you. You can think about that while I tell folks this. I did not know that this wonderful woman here, ladies and gentlemen, was blessed with some sort of divine artistic powers. It is absolutely unbelievable. She was like, yeah, I can draw a bit. I mean, that's like, I'm not going to necessarily liken you to Da Vinci or something, but I mean, it was amazing. I was so startled when she's like, I can draw a bit. I have a little bit of skills. No official or professional training at university or anything, but I've got some skills. And then I said, okay, well, we'll try it out. And I gave her some thoughts, and I showed her some images, and I said, can you do anything like this? And then I don't know what it was, like 40 minutes later, and it was a pure lifelike rendering of the image with the changes that I had asked. It was absolutely astonishing. It's I know where I have no abilities, and drawing art, that's one of the places where I am handicapped, to say the least. But to see this, I can't even comprehend. I can see, and I told Dion this, it was truly miraculous. I can see things, and when I write, beautiful scenes in my mind, and then I can put it into words in the story, and I can paint a vivid picture for people. But whatever hardware that's supposed to be in my brain, or could be in someone's brain, to be able to take that image in the head and then have it go through one of my arms, and then I could put it on the paper, it just doesn't exist. I don't know. As soon as it tries to translate from my head to the paper. So I'm really interested, actually. This is really a selfish question, but I think other people might be selfish here. They want to know this. When did you discover this amazing ability? Folks, I know most folks are not going to know this about you, and they're finding out actually a lot of interesting things about you today. When did you discover that you started to have this ability, and that you are, and did you develop it, or were you just immediately adept at drawing, or how did it come together?
Oh, my father was quite a good artist, and my father and mother were divorced when I was 10 years old, and I chose to live with my father because we had a very good relationship. I had quite a tenuous relationship with my mother. So my father and I were like pot and pan, and he was quite a good artist, and we would sit for hours, my father and I, and draw. And he taught me about perspective, and he taught me about the importance of detail, and then how to. Oh, it's very difficult to explain. But I have your drawings here, and I'm going to keep them, because when your book sells 14 million copies, Jason, then
Yes, great number.
then I'm going to keep the originals. I'm going to bribe you.
Make yourself rich.
No, I'm just working on a something for Nick, Unwashed. He's been on your channel, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And I'm sure he won't mind me showing you, because he wants to make a t-shirt design. Now, this is nothing like what the work I've done for you, Jason, because this is very ideal, some stylistic. But he wanted a frog. I don't know whether you're going to be able to see this correctly, but he wanted a frog, and oh, that's not.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
He wanted a groiper frog.
That's the most badass frog I've ever seen.
Yes.
And he's
As for
muscular.
Yeah. As for people asking about the work Dion did for Jason, you'll have to wait for the artist's edition of Prometheus Rising, coming this spring.
That is a badass frog. That is amazing.
He's going to have it's AC/DC inspired, a groiper frog that Unwashed
rock and roll
to put on a t-shirt. Yeah. So I'm just
rock and roll.
that, and yeah. And I don't know what the question was you asked me, and I've forgotten now because I'm old and my memories.
No, you're not old. No, we've gone afield from where. So it was just how it. So you had a talent, but your father nurtured it. So you genetically.
Yes.
Okay, he passed it on to you. So genetics must be real, folks. Because my parents obviously did not have any artistic ability either, drawing wise, because they had nothing to give me, nothing to bequeath artistically for it to be able to draw. But and then he helped you, he nurtured this, and you obviously became just a magnificent artist. It's truly remarkable, ladies and gentlemen. And yeah, I look forward to Dionne's work when it comes out in the Prometheus Rising.
Well, this segues into something else.
I haven't showed. Oh, sorry.
No, well, go ahead.
What are you going to say?
I was about to say I haven't showed anybody them, Jason,
Oh,
because they're a
yes.
secret, aren't they? I'm not allowed to show anybody.
Keep them secret.
Am I?
This is proprietary stuff right now.
Yeah, yes. Right.
Well, I think that Jason asked about the artistic ability because it was supposed to give you time to be mulling over something else. And I don't remember what that was either.
I'm so old that I
But
can't remember.
We'll just let it go, and we'll move on to. I know Mr.
Maybe
George
the
has another question.
Maybe the chat can remind us. Speaking of monarchs, someone said I look like a young Henry VIII. That's funny. Hopefully I don't have to go through as many wives. But we wanted to talk about this, Dion, because it's something that is near and dear to us as well. Speaking of your artistic abilities, I know that you have a perspective where you look at aesthetics and the aesthetics that are under attack right now. So we'd like to hear some of your thoughts on that and how that's not the first thing people think of. Obviously, there's good reason for that sometimes. We should be thinking first and foremost of people who are suffering and victims of terrible crimes. That's what's going to kind of get you the most. But there is very much an attack on our aesthetics and cultural, artistic sense. It's something we speak about with many guests, and we know that it's something that means a lot to you. So we wanted to make sure that we hit that note tonight with you as well.
Well, earlier in the show, I talked about this old police station that I started my career in. It was a huge Victorian house which had about 5 floors and a cellar, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And then I moved the police station to this concrete block, which had no heart, no soul. It was nothing. It was like, it was grey, it was boring, it was depressing. And I know it was a police station. I know that police stations aren't fun places, but it made you feel actually quite depressed. Whereas my first police station, the beautiful Victorian house that I started in, it was a joy to come to work and to drive up the drive to this beautiful house, which had been gutted inside and made into a police station, but it was beautiful. I am not a big fan of what do you call it? Art on using computers to generate art. I don't think it requires a lot of skill, and I'm not a famous artist in any way, shape, or form. And I don't want people to think that I'm blowing my own trumpet. But you know, to nurture an art like drawing or painting takes years and years of practice. I'm 50 years old. I've just turned 50 years old, and I'm still learning. It's something that is a lifelong adventure or endeavor for somebody to create the perfect picture. And you know, I've been to London. Of course, I'm from England, and I've been to London so many times, and I always go to the National Gallery when I'm there, because it is just such a place of history, and it's just such a place of beauty. And I can go into these, what I called hallowed halls of art, and stand there and just get there's just the, I don't know what even to call it in English, because I can't remember. Just there's a feeling in there. All of the old masters, not all of them, but a lot of the old masters are there hanging on the walls, and some quite new ones. But the feeling I have when I'm in there is nothing that, it can't be replaced by people spray painting stuff on walls or creating computer generated art. It's not the same. There's no passion. In a pencil like this, when I'm drawing or I'm painting something, a part of me goes through my hand, down this pencil and onto the paper. And you can't do that with a computer. It's not right. Even when you look at things like architecture, and I talked about the police station that was just this grey box, concrete, horrible grey box. There's no beauty in it. There's no beauty in new buildings anymore. They're just towers and blocks of depression in my eyes. There's nothing nice about them. Modern art is something also that I think is... I used to think that I was some way because I didn't understand it. But because
that's what they want people to think.
Right.
Yeah. But because I've been on this journey with coming to ethno-nationalism, listening to Jason, listening to you, Jared, listening to Mark and Laura and all of them, I realized that I'm not wrong. That these modern artists, these goldfish swimming around in a blender isn't art. You know, taping a banana to a wall in a museum isn't art. It's rubbish. It's filling people's heads with rubbish. It's not creative. There's no thought gone into it. No. It's I don't even know what even to describe it, and it actually makes me quite angry. But then go into the National Gallery in London and look at these works of art that I just astound me. And when I go in there, I get this, I have this feeling, and I come out there and I'm just so fantastically happy when I come out of that place. And when I'm in there, I love it. And then I come to London, you've probably both been to London. It's a beautiful city if you take away the majority of the inhabitants now. The architecture in London is beautiful.
Yes.
Why aren't we are so capable, our people, of creating beautiful things, not only paintings but buildings. Why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we teaching our young to recreate, or teaching them these skills to create these enormous buildings, these beautiful buildings that last forever? These buildings, some of them in London have been standing there since the 1500s. That doesn't happen today. A house is built out of some sort of concrete block and it's gone in 20 years. Nothing lasts anymore. There's no history. And I think that's a part of this, I don't even want to, I'm going to sound crazy now, but like an evil plan, to rob us of our history. And I won't allow that to happen. I won't learn how to draw on a computer because it has no heart. It has no feeling. Nothing of me has gone into that computer. But when I have this in my hand, if I can focus on that, it's in my hand.
We see it.
That's a part of me suddenly. And so when I'm drawing something for somebody, a part of me has gone into that piece of work. And that's important. It's important that we have the human connection. I'm not bothered about bloody computer graphics. And they don't impress me one bit because there is no skill in it. I could learn it within half an hour. And maybe I'm being a bit facetious, maybe, but maybe I could learn it to do it in a week. No problem. But you can't learn what I can do. And I'm not a fantastic, brilliant artist, but you can't learn that in a week. It's taken me 50 years and I'm not there yet, and I'll never be there. I will die an old woman, but I'll die happy because I'm sticking to traditional art. I'm sticking to tradition, and I have some choice words, but I won't say them on
Well, I think we just have to say really quickly that something just comes to mind that what we call tradition and what you are experiencing when you go into these halls with these artworks and also the architecture is biospiritual resonance. It is you have the biospirit of the West inside of you, and then you are seeing that in society around you, and it resonates with you. It inspires a sense of wonderment, a sense of awe, a sense of belonging, a sense of contact. That is what and who we are made manifest in the real world. That is why we feel these things, irrespective of whether the building is originally meant for a house, now a police station, meant to worship this God, now it worships that God. If we build it and it is from our biospirit, then it resonates with us, and it is a beautiful thing. And folks, by the way, the more of us that get together, these will be things we talk about increasingly in the future, and the more of our biospirit is in our environment and we resonate with it, there's more power there for us to be had out in the real world. So it is a beautiful thing. What you're talking about is biospiritual resonance. We, I guess, in a way, mistakenly refer to this as history or heritage, and then the anti-whites, they come in with their clever verbiage and they say, oh, well, all things old are antiquated, and so therefore your biospirit is antiquated. What they have done, when we see these artists, when we see these cinder block buildings and things of this nature, those engineers, that is their biospirit. Those engineers that are non-white, whether they're anti-white or not, they are putting their biospirit into the world the best way that they can. And that is why to us, it is very ugly. It is objectionable. And when we see white, anti-white whites, what they're doing is they are looking inward at the biospirit and they're saying, I'm going to create the inverse of that. I'm going to create the exact opposite of what I feel resonant inside of me. And I'm going to put that into the real world because I've been taught to hate all things that are Western, all things that come from white people. So it's the inverse of our biospirit. It's a beautiful thing and a powerful thing that you're talking about. And it's great that right here at as we're getting close to the end of the show, you have really tapped into that energy and we were able to see that come through you. It's just an amazing thing. We do have, Jared, do you have another question? We do have I think we have another super chat and another question, but
we have another thing we want to hit with Dion. We'll hear the super chats too. I just like to say with modern art, I think we should play their own game. I'm going to pay a guy to dress up like a security guard, stand in an empty room of a modern gallery. People wander in. They eventually figure out that the security guard just standing there stoically is the art. Woo, deep, right? And I'll collect millions, and then I'll be able to invest those millions into our cause. I think that we should just play their game. Let's tape some bananas to walls, Jason.
Yeah.
Make some money, and then we'll have the time and the energy to do our thing even tenfold and invest in other people.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. It was great seeing Dion get animated there. Animation, pun intended.
Yeah. Dion, this is a very important subject to Jason and I. We wholeheartedly agree with you, and we see the metaphysical, metagenetic reasons that Jason was touching on. But we can have a whole conversation on that in and of itself. But let's hear from some of the super chats, and we have one more theme we'd like to hit with you before we part ways tonight.
Indeed. We have here a couple super financial gifts, I should say, just coming in right here at the moment. Let me see. We have over here on Kofi Figalian, or that's the one from earlier. All right. Thank you very much. And now we also have a Zero Talon. And thank you so much. $5 gift and writing. So you are the artist. I look forward to seeing it. Yes, she's going one of the artists that are going to be in, and fantastic artistic ability. So you all will see exactly what I'm talking about. And over here on Entropy, we have Steve Bin Bob gifting $3. Thank you so much, Steve. And writing, is Dion aware that the new heavyweight boxing champion of the world, Tyson Fury, is well aware of a certain question and has called their influence out in the past? Well, I guess this is really just a yes or no question. Do you know that Tyson Fury is talked about a certain group that shall go unnamed in the past?
Oh, what do I do here, Jason? I'm
stuck
between a rock and a hard place, because I've actually written to Tyson Fury about that, and I can't say any more because.
Did you teach him what he knows?
Did you?
Maybe.
Well, that's a teaser.
You know, we reveal a lot here on Tap. This might be a Tap exclusive.
We have an insight here, a significant teaser, ladies and gentlemen, about a connection with a heavyweight champion of the world right now. Very interesting, and a little group of people that has so little power that they can make channels and jobs go away in the blink of an eye. So we'll just.
Well, Dion, will we be hearing more about that at an appropriate time?
Yes.
Or is it private information to protect our heavyweight champion?
I will be. I will say that. What can I say? We might be hearing from Tyson Fury.
That is significant, and you heard it
Can
here.
Can you get him to be a guest on tap? Maybe so. You could be our co-host for that episode. How's that sound?
I'm kind of zipped.
There.
All right. Oh. I think I have an idea of what might be happening, but I'm not going to say. Okay. Well, this is fascinating. Jason.
Fascinating.
Guys, tap. Come on. As I said in the chat, Jason and I are not the types of guys to toot our own horns, but we are, I will say it, we are one of the places you go the deepest with content creators and activists. We're trying to get you guys to know Dion better. And a lot of people feel comfortable enough with us where they reveal things for the first time here. So if you think that's valuable, please do share what we do. There's a lot of people who just kind of report on the news and say, hey, isn't that a hypocritical? Ugh, things are so bad. Ugh.
Right.
And they have, not to make it sound like a competition, but there's a competition element to everything, and it keeps you sharp. That's not a bad thing. We know that. We believe in hierarchy here. But if you think that what we're doing is worthwhile, we need you all to share what we're doing, because it's an uphill battle with the algorithms. YouTube has been horrendous to Jason and I. I mean, on my Twitter, I keep getting new people following me every day, and I stay at 3,707 followers. So somehow 3,707 plus 200 is still 3,707.
It's the new math.
Anyway, yeah. So allow me to be marketer. We don't like to do that much. It's just not in our character. But we're also, I guess, to balance that, we are proud of what we're doing here. And we have amazing guests like Dionne, and we try to go deeper, not just talk about news. The news is important. Perspective on the news is important. Our frame for understanding the world is important, but we try to add another dimension. And Dionne, we have to thank you for providing such a fascinating conversation tonight to that end as well. I'm enjoying this immensely.
Yes. Indeed. Well, we have a couple more financial gifts that we'll hit upon before checking out tonight, but I'm going to have to get us a little horn so that I can toot it when we're going to toot our own horn. Or maybe I should get a great big horn. But anyhow, straight, white, British, Protestant, gifting $3. Thank you so very much. And writing, can you talk more about what biospirit means? Sorry, I'm new to this channel. Thanks. Well, you are most welcome to be here. You see, you get to hear from absolutely wonderful and lovely women here like Dion, and we, as Mr. George was just pointing out, we go deep with our guest, and I will just sum up quickly. And if you want to hear more about things like biospirit, make sure you show up on Sundays at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time on this channel when we have a going free show. And I talk about all of these sort of things, biospirit and everything else, biospiritual resonance. Essentially, to truncate here, and I hope it's not too little, every people on the planet has a distinct biospirit. There is an element there that is biological that we can see with our scientific instruments. And we know that there is something more that is present because we can see that it is in between where we are and the actual creation of the manifestation of our desires in the world around us, that we refer to as the spirit part of it. So something that is still not yet able to be seen or measured or weighed by our scientific instruments. However, at some point, we no doubt will be able to measure these things, or very likely we will be able to see and measure these things, just as in the past we couldn't see a great many things, and yet we could see the results at the other end as we examined them. So you can think about biospirit in a layman's way by considering it as instinct. Every animal, every breed of animal, and race is the same word for breed, there's commensurate to breed, has an instinct, just like a poodle has an instinct, or a hunting dog, or a tracking dog, or an eye, a dog that tracks with vision, or dog that tracks with scent. They have an instinct to do that way. Different types of painted dogs, different types of rhinos. They have the black and white rhino. They have specific instincts that in their behavior that are different from each other. And since we see this in every other animal on earth, whether you believe that we are animals or not, spirits living inside an animal body, at bare minimum, we have instincts as well. And we see this reflected in all things around the world as well. That's why where white people go, you see us create Western civilization. Western civilization is merely our biospirit projected out of ourselves through our ingenuity, our creativity, our industriousness into the world around us in the form of architecture, art, music, etc. So in the aggregate, the biospirit of a people is its culture. This is why cultures cannot be mingled. There's no such thing as multicultural. That essentially is what it is. So you can think about it as instinct, and you can learn a lot more about it in the book Go Free, which is still available at the special reduced price at $2.99 for the first 399 downloads on Kindle. If you have the Kindle app, you can read it on any device that can get the Kindle app. So thank you very much for that question. And Hansa just in right now with a financial gift of $5, writing, you're about to get 200,000 more subs from interest in the white heavyweight champ coming on your show. Well, that would be something, wouldn't it? That would really get... Dionne.
I didn't say he was going to come on the show.
No, I know you.
Don't jump the gun. Don't jump the gun.
No, that's a commenter just having a little fun.
Yes. We do have David here over on Entropy as well, gifting $25. Thank you so much, David. And writing simply, thanks for everything you do. Well, thank you so much for being here with us and for everything that you are doing for White Wellbeing. Frank over here has a question. Did I read this earlier? I don't think we got to this one. For Dion, ultimately, how do you see your mission today? What do you feel is the most pressing issue of the next generation?
I think a lot of people would like me to say demographics, but that's not what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that we need to get hold of people who are the younger generation, people who maybe are 17, 18, 19 years old. And we need to make them understand what is going on in the world from an early age. Because what I think is that these colleges and universities that these young people go to nowadays are all led by some Marxist professor, and these young people are being indoctrinated, and we need to save them. I think that's where the focus maybe should be. I'm not saying that everything else isn't as important, but no one's getting any younger. I'm not going to be here forever, and neither are Jared or Jason. I'm not going to say people are going to die tomorrow or anything, but we need to get the younger generation, I mean the very young people involved in our world, get them while they're young, because they've been indoctrinated enough in their colleges and schools. I'm sure that a lot of them know that what is being taught in these universities and colleges is wrong. I have actually seen some videos of young people on YouTube and other places saying that they just nod their head and they say yes, no, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, just to get through the school day. But they know really that what they're being taught is wrong. And that's great. But isn't it a shame that these young people have to stifle their own feelings over something that is just so important, and they have to stifle them because of these Marxist professors that are at these universities and colleges and schools in America and in the UK and all around the world now. That needs to change, and I think that's where our group that's really something that I would like to see our group focus on. We need to get the younger people involved from an early age and make them understand that the school system that they've been through the last X amount of years they've been at school or college or university has indoctrinated them. We can see it with all of these communists and left-wing lunatics that you see walking around the street with pussy hats on their heads, and you know, it's I'm not that old. I'm only 50. You know, I am getting on a bit, but I'm not ancient.
No, you're not.
But I see the change from when I was 20 years old, and I joined the police force. I see the change in 20-year-olds today, then and now, and it's so different now. These kids are up against massive odds to get through an education system without being indoctrinated by the far left, and I think that's something that we should be. Well, I know that we are very observant about it here and in our sphere, which I'm quite new to, but I do understand it, and I do understand that these Marxist professors and teachers are indoctrinating our children, and that needs to stop it. I think that's probably where I would put a lot of focus if I were in charge. Start with them young.
Very well said.
I don't even know if that answered the question, because I bloody forgot.
I know you did. You absolutely did, dear lady. And we have here, I just read somewhere. Okay, Dion is gorgeous, to be honest. So you're hard on yourself, and the people love you. So please, and Mr. George, did you have anything else? Are we ready to wrap up this fantastic show?
Well, we wanted to ask one more thing, and couldn't let this go. So you live in Denmark. You've lived in Denmark for a long time. So we want to get that into the mix just for the last few minutes about a broader view of what it means to be of European descent, the overarching similarities, and then the specific differences, the nuances between the different ethnicities, what you've observed having been raised in the UK, but then going to live your adult life in Denmark. And also, if you want to tie this into anything, any thoughts about Brexit and where polls are going to shift in a world where Brexit has now gone through.
Okay. Yes, I lived in the United Kingdom until I was 29, and then I moved to Denmark. So I'm now 50. So I've been here in Denmark for 20 years. What I notice about being in Denmark, especially in the early years of me living here, my mother was a Dane. My family half of my family are Danish, but we are here in Denmark. We are about 15, 20 years behind the UK and America. I can still walk into my small town here where I live, not far from where I live, and I can still see babies in pushchairs and prams being left outside of shops while their mother or father goes in, and nobody steals the babies.
Wow.
I can still see bicycles unlocked in the high street. I can still see bags and property being left without it being stolen. But I live in a very small town. Well, I don't live in a town, but I live near to a very small town. But the sickness is also arriving in Denmark, and you can see that in Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark. I've been there once, and I don't go back. I don't go to capital cities out of choice. I know what's going on. I don't have to see it with my own eyes. I've been to London enough to see what's happening. I don't like it. It makes me depressed. It makes me feel ill. I know I've forgotten the question. What was the question? It's because I'm old, Jared.
No.
It's you're answering it perfectly. It's just anything that comes to mind about what it's been like to live these last 20 years in Denmark, what it makes you observe about overarching connections among all European peoples, and then, as I was saying, maybe specific differences between the ethnicities of the Danish and the English, even though, of course, they share a lot of common history and a lot of genetics. So, I mean, anything really. It's just kind of an open-ended question.
Oh, okay. Denmark is behind the rest of, well, I won't say the rest, I can't speak for the rest of Europe, but Denmark is behind England, the UK, about 15 to 20 years. And if nothing happens very soon, Denmark will also end up like London.
Damn.
And the way that the UK is going. And I don't want to see that happen. I'm lucky enough to live in an area which is in the very, very south of Denmark. I live on the border with Germany. It takes me 5 minutes to drive to Germany from where I am. This area of Denmark is very Christian. I'm not a Christian. If anything, I'm a pagan. But it's a very Christian area of Denmark. It's rural. It's full of farmers. It's full of tradition. It's beautiful. It's clean. And God, I had a shock when I went back. I don't even know what the question was now, but I'm just going to ramble away because I'm old.
No,
so I went to London. I went to England last year. It wasn't London. It was somewhere in the north. And I know you want to finish the show, but I'm old, so you just have to put up with it. And I went to an old a town in the north of England, which was a market town. And I stayed there for the Patriotic Alternative Conference, the very first one last year. And I was absolutely shocked to come back to a place that I once knew. It doesn't exist anymore. Everything is run down. It's dirty. There's litter everywhere. There are foreigners. I'm going to call them foreigners everywhere. There are very few white people to be seen. It feels dangerous. It feels unsafe. I certainly wouldn't be walking around in England on my own anymore. I could 20 years ago when I left England, and I don't feel that I can anymore, and that is so sad. And that feeling of safety for not just women but anybody needs to come back to our countries. It's not safe anymore. The foreigners, we need to stop it. It needs the flows needs to stop. I'm so lucky to live where I do. I live in a 99.9% white area of Denmark. I very, very rarely see a face of color here.
Our faces actually have, with all due respect, we actually are the people of color.
All the different colors in our faces, yes.
In our eyes, in our hair.
Okay. I never see a black person. Was that better? I never see a black or Asian person where I live. Very, very rarely. Very rarely. And I'm actually quite happy about that. I'm very, very, very fortunate to live where I do, but it is out of choice. Yeah, I don't know what I'm rambling on about. It's because I'm old.
Dion, you're not that old. And what about all these happiness polls we hear about Denmark? What's to that Danes are supposedly the happiest people? Any comments on that?
Yes, we have. Well, my mother was Danish. I have a Danish family that goes back into time to year dot, just about, a very ancient old Danish family. Denmark is cool. You would love it because it's majority white.
Yes.
It's very, very clean. There is respect for other people's property.
Wow.
There's very little theft. It's very traditional. Traditions are kept. People keep their word. Everything is clean and tidy. People have respect for each other's property. There's very little theft. I love Denmark. I love England. England is the home of my birth. Of course, I love England, but I absolutely love Denmark. I absolutely love being here. It's where I feel that I belong. I feel at home here.
Briefly, anywhere else you've traveled in Europe that has that sense of community, tradition, cleanliness, that would a safe place to travel that's akin to where you are in Denmark?
I've been to the Bahamas, and I've been to France, and I've been to Germany, Sweden, England, Ireland. I've been to Scotland. God, I've been lots and lots and lots of places. I've never felt so safe as I do now where I live, ever. I can walk out here in the middle of the night and I know that nothing would happen to me. Nothing.
That's amazing. Well, we do have a final request. Could you please say it's time to go free in Danish?
Ja, jeg skal lige, nu skal jeg lige ordne mit hjerne ind til dansk. Det er tid at være fri. Det er tid at være fri.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, dear lady. Where can people find you and all of these exciting things that you're going to be covering and engaged in, and that they've heard over the course of the last hour and a half? Where can they find you? What is your next project? And what do you want to reveal, if anything? And please share that with the folks.
People can find me on just about on YouTube. I'm hanging on in there, but I've not got any content really anymore on my channel. I daren't put anything up because I'll lose my channel automatically. Wow. But my YouTube channel is called Secret Sources. I'm also on BitChute, where all of my content is uploaded to. Though, funnily enough, I did get one of my videos put into suspended animation on BitChute last week, funnily enough. Yes. So that makes me ponder a little bit, but I'm also called Secret Sources on BitChute. You can find me there. I'm also on Twitter, and my @ name is Dion, Dionne 4210. And that was my old collar number in the police, 4210.
Oh, nice. Well, fantastic. It's been an absolute pleasure having you today. And we absolutely want you to come back and spend another hour and a half with us in the future. Mr. George.
Well, briefly, I've never heard of something like this happening before. What happened to you on BitChute?
I uploaded a video. No, I can't see it now, Jared, because I'm filming on my iPad. But it's the last video that I put up, and I can't even remember what it was bloody well called now. Just a minute. Maybe I can find it on my telephone.
But what was the nature of the issue?
I don't know. I didn't get any explanation from BitChute. I'm just having a look now on my telephone. But it disappeared from my playlist on BitChute. Yes, here it is. I'll try and see. It's now got a
warning.
How do I do that?
It does say warning on there.
I've never seen something like this on BitChute.
Graphic content.
Graphic content. Okay.
Well,
but people are still able to access it. Can they click on through and still access it?
Yes, you can access it. It's I don't know whether I should show you with this. No, I won't. You can look for yourselves on my BitChute channel what it's about.
Okay.
It's not graphic. It's honest, and it's what's happening in the world. And if people don't open their eyes and start looking at the actual facts of what's happening in the world, oh yes, it's about that's playing now. Oh God, I'm so rubbish at this. It's about race mixing.
Okay, I thought you were going to show graphic, like women who'd been battered in grooming gangs or something. that is not quite graphic, and this is very worrisome given that BitChute has been our respite, a place where most of us are going because of all the YouTube censorship. So this is a
Well,
bit
it
of news
seems there are
as well.
there are a couple of graphic photographs on that short video, but it's nothing that I would say is overly sensitive. But I do believe that I'm being targeted by whoever. You know, I can't keep a YouTube channel for more than a year. Never have been able to. So I wonder how long BitChute will allow me to continue. I don't believe that I upload things that are particularly offensive. Yes, offensive if you are non-white, maybe, but that's just that's how the cookie crumbles. You know, we're having to fight back, and these are the platforms that we're choosing to do it on. If they don't like it, well, tough luck, because I'll just keep going. And if I get thrown off of BitChute, I'll find somewhere else. I will always find a way.
That's right.
Nothing,
well, thank you.
It won't stop me.
Yeah, we feel the same. And Jason and I have both been through a lot of hurdles over, above, beyond the hurdles ourselves. But yeah, thank you for that little bit of info at the end there, because that's a bit of news too. I haven't heard of something like this happening on BitChute. It is worrying, and something we'll keep our eye on, and something we'll be discussing with our friends here. But thank you, Dion, for being on. It was a pleasure to speak to you. And as Jason said, we'd love to speak again at some point soon. You all probably know, but we have new people here. We always welcome. My own site is thegreatorder.com, and that's where everything for me goes through. If you want to look for ways to contact me, all of these videos are archived, and then other work I do too. I should mention, we were talking about aesthetics before. I have a page on my site called Beautiful Things, and it's a growing list of contemporary artists I find who are making actual art, the kind of art that we were talking about with Dion a little earlier in the show. Just stuff that I like. They're not affiliated with me. They're not necessarily in the white positive sphere, although a lot of them do carry that bio spirit, whether they're conscious of it or not. A lot of them do happen to be in Russia. It's very interesting to find that a lot of painters doing more classical styles and wholesome themes, and even more imaginative pieces that are imbued with mythic images, are imbued with our biospirit, seem to be coming from Russia. But there's a variety of visual artists, and again, a growing list. I have some that I have to add. I add to it when I can. I share on Twitter and other social media, so go look me up. Again, on my site, you can find all the social media. Of course, for Jason and I together, all of these streams and the videos that come out of these streams and community-generated material as well, that is going to be found on the afterparty.tv. That's our catalog of what we're doing and what the community is contributing with their talent and creativity as well. Please sign up to the mailing list. We should have another mailing coming out pretty soon. We're pretty infrequent. We've only been at most once a month right now since we started the site at the latter part of 2019. And I think that's it for now. There's a lot in the works, but nothing else to say at the moment. So I'll hand it over to Jason to take us out, and we'll all see you soon.
Indeed. Very well said. And Jared, you know, Dionne is, there are certain people that we come across that both Jared and I, we agree this would be just like a dream come true to be able to sit down, have a dinner with this person, hang out, have a good time. We've talked before, Jared, about that. Like Simon, for example, would be great. Dionne would be one of those. It would be fantastic to be able to sit down and have dinner with Dionne and chat over a meal, and just talking about that resonance of the biosphere. It would be
good company. Yeah, good company.
Absolutely. So let's see. I want to spotlight some folks, but before I do that, I want to give a big thank you to Ray, modding today by himself, the intrepid Ray out there, making sure that all things are safe for the channel, that the little group in charge doesn't wipe everything out. So thank you so much for your service today. And I'll spotlight Frank was in the chat today. Anon was out there as well. Hello to both of you. The red hand of the West was out there. And our dear friend Sadensky Lawson was out there as well. A big hello to you and all of you who chatted today or who financially gifted today. A big thank you to all of you. And for those who are brand new, listening live or in replay. We welcome you. You don't have to chat. You could be a wallflower. We want everybody, though, to learn from what we are doing here, to go free, to improve themselves and who and what they are. We continue to receive magical news of different stories of people we had today. Earlier, just today, we had, let's see, Goyle Gone Wild was talking about in Italy, they're buying up some abandoned villages and trying to rebuild some of the homes for young families. And we had Babbling Brook chatted today saying, just recently found out we are expecting our first baby in September. So how exciting is this? It's been a wonderful time with all of you here on Tap, and we look forward to seeing you all again here next time.